Hello, welcome to 50 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and I'm joined by David A. Fields. Hello, David.
Hello, Maria Isabel. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Welcome for all of you who are joining us live. This is a space where we answer your questions about how to improve, how to create success for you, for your consulting firm, for your clients, how to grow, and also how to resolve the challenges of the day to day of running a firm, of running a team inside a consulting firm. Hello, Preston. You know the drill, right? So it takes us a minute to see your comments. That's how we know we're here. We welcome not only your questions, but also your insights into the discussion that we're having, your add-ons, added comments, added questions. So it takes us a second, and that's why we always start with questions that came in earlier during the week or from earlier. And Jaren has a question today. You were telling me, David, something about the question that it's in first.
Yeah, Jaron, what do we have? Because I think I saw this. Hey, John.
Hi, John.
Yeah. You want me to read it? Because I saw this. This came in on an article a few weeks ago, and I wanted to bring it up here, and then we didn't get a chance. And then something else came in that was very similar to this. So I thought this would be a good time. Stephen said, we wrapped up a project a couple of months ago, and the original project team was positive. Since then, the client team changed. One new stakeholder doesn't view the work positively and has shared vague negative feedback. Always helpful. I've reached out to understand this person's concerns and offered to bring the team back to help resolve any issues at no cost. How would you handle the situation?
Right. So not all that uncommon, right? In which you did all the work with the team. Stephen did all the work with a client team, Stephen and his firm, right? And now the stakeholders, the folks who are inheriting the work, who have to implement it, who have to enjoy what he did, are different than the folks who scoped it out. So, David, how does Stephen address this situation where they're not so happy?
Well, I think he did. I think he did the right thing in terms of partly I think he did the right thing, and partly I probably wouldn't have gone where he went. So in seeking to understand the new person's concerns is absolutely right. I mean, that's right side up. And making sure that you get where they're coming from. I probably wouldn't have offered to rectify issues at no cost if the project had been deemed successful by the original decision maker. But I think that's a strategic decision for Stephen to make. It depends on the specifics, which he would know better than I would. But in general, if someone has concerns about an old project, then I think he's right. He says, look, I totally get what you're saying. We did a great job hitting your predecessor's goals, but your goals are different. And that might warrant a shift in the work. And then you can have a discussion on should we have a context discussion? Should we talk about new scope? Again, I wouldn't say it's rework. If you were successful before, you were successful. You were paid. You hit the objectives as they were laid out by your client. Do you see it differently, Maria Isabel?
I absolutely agree with you, and I want to acknowledge everyone who's here and who's kindly saying hello. Hello.
Hi, Heidi and Colette and Vinod, and hi, Michael and Marco and Suzanne.
And exactly, and share your questions. Right, that's what we're here for. So don't be shy. Pose any question you had. Back to Stephen, right, and his situation. I think there's two scenarios, and you're right. This is all about expectations, perspectives, goals, right? And how does the work that Stephen and his team did and fit in relation to that? Clearly a different point of view. My one thought is also, and it's more of a question, so if Stephen happens to be here, I would be curious. The possibilities change a little bit in a scenario where Stephen is continuing or is doing a constraining stream of work when the new leadership comes in, right? Because then how does their feedback, their perception, their value of the initial work plays in relation to the work that he's continuing to do? And that's where I would maybe think as strategically as well into, okay, where do you want to adjust? Right? What's an adjustment that it's worth doing in relation to expectations going forward, or of a stream of work that continues to go forward, and where you want to make sure you're meeting the goals and the desired outcomes and the value of the new leadership team that you're now delivering work with. So it's not unusual nowadays for a leadership team or the sponsor of a project to change while you're actually doing the work, because somebody left their job and somebody new got hired and they inherited your project with them. Make sure you sit down and you hit their expectations as well, and you understand what their expectations are. So that's my 2 cents, but in agreement with you as usual, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, not always. People don't know that, but we spend
right.
we spend
They don't get to see that as often, right?
pushing
All
back
right.
on each other.
All right.
Colette brought something up, a
All
quandary,
right.
and priced it lower than desired rate due to the type of work I started on with client 2 years ago. First of all, good for you. You've been in that client for 2 years. It shows you're doing good
Right.
work. It's extended over the past couple of years. They would like me to stay on for another period of time. Again, congrats to you. This time to do
Right.
something with much higher stakes and tapping really well into my specialty. I want to increase my rate. Let's get away from the word rate, as it's driven by expertise and potential impact. But how to do it? I bill hourly. That's far. Let's stop doing that. And struggle with outcome-based, but open, and it stops there. I assume what you're going to say is, I'm open to doing whatever you say, David and Maria Isabel.
Right.
I'm sure that was exactly what you had typed and it just didn't come through.
And because Colette, we know you know the model really well, you can anticipate there's a few like warning signs that are going off on our heads as we're reading you pose the problem, right? Hourly fees, we want you to work away from that. We also want you to encourage your positioning towards your client, and your position is towards yourself. To think of your work not as something that you work in terms of rates, right? Rates in relation to time, this concept of time and materials versus like what's really the value of your work. Now, can you help clients shift with you? Absolutely. Can they shift it on successfully? And in the shift, will you see your fees increase? Absolutely also. Look, you clearly demonstrated value. You clearly have a track of success. It's also clear that, and thank you, Colette, for saying that, yes, you are, and that you know. We know you know, and we appreciate that. So good. So with that in mind, a couple of things. Be transparent about the conversation. Say, look, we've been working 2 years. These have been the principles under which we have worked together. We thought about our works in terms of a billable rate and, billing hourly. That model has to change. There's good reasons for which the model has to change. Reasons that actually are better for you, client. Not only for me, but also better for you. Now, I've known you really well for 2 years. I can scope the work better. I can get the desired outcomes you want in a lot better. And I can hit all the elements that are important about working together in terms of responsiveness, flexibility, making sure the work gets done and gets done to the quality you want, while having fees or investment levels that reflect the value of the project. And then you start working your way towards a different fee model in that conversation. So you push your client to think about, we're shifting fee models altogether. You may have to settle on an intermediate step where they think about, okay, are we shifting to fees in a time period, right? Rather than a full value-based model per project. And that would be an intermediate step. But I would encourage you to say, look, I'm switching the model of my practice from hourly billing rates, which is not awesome, into a value-based fee model. And this is what it would look like, and this is how it would work, and this is where this would make sense. And start outlining that in a way that makes sense for your clients as well, and where they can see the value you're actually contributing. David, why are you smiling? And tell us more. What do you think?
I'm enjoying your explanation. I probably would have gone similar, but slightly differently.
Go ahead. You collect some language.
I would probably just, I might, since they are changing the type of work, they're actually giving you a gift.
Right.
Because now you're able to say, The kind of work we were doing, I charged hourly for, not for most clients, but with you, this type new work you're asking for is not done on an hourly basis. It's done on a value basis, and just set it up as different.
Right.
That kind of work hourly, this kind of work value, and price it that way. Now, if you can't, let us know, or if you think there's a problem with that, let us know.
All right.
Should we answer Suzanne's question?
Absolutely. What's your
Suzanne said-
perception of the market, right? How is it changing going into the fall? What's the demand? What do
Yeah.
you see, David?
So we get to ask this question a lot, and because we talk with so many firms, and also we talk with clients on
Right.
behalf of our firms.
Right.
And so what I would say is 2025, where we stand right now, it's still, there are still some headwinds. It is a more difficult market than, for instance, 2022, 2023. There have been, things seem to be shaking loose a little bit. Marie-Isabelle, will be interesting to see if you've seen the same thing. Cycle times are still slow, and size of projects, businesses certainly aren't signing 7-figure projects right now that I've seen. A whole lot of them, or even like $500,000 projects. They're signing 200s, 250s, 300s, or if you work, whatever your equivalent is, slightly smaller. So it's a little bit smaller projects, a little bit slower to sign, but there is business happening out there. Marie-Isabelle, in your conversations, you seeing similar or different?
Yes and no. I think compared to the beginning of the year, much more volume of business. Cycle time still very long, much more longer than any of us ever would want to see, right? So expect that. Still more trepidation, absolutely. And depending on the industry, size of the projects, very, a lot of variation, right? Depending on the industry, depending on the type of projects, depending on the level of decision maker, and the perception of the company, of how the company perceives the next 3 to 5 years, and whether they are striving for a growth strategy or they're striving for a containment strategy. That's where pockets where I see more, our clients seeing a lot more movement, and our clients stating that they want to make more investments. But generally, yes, agree. Now, is it like it was 2-3 years prior? No, we're still very far
not right
away.
now. Hopefully it'll come back. It's gonna be really interesting to see what happens and with this market cycle. Heidi, you asked a long question, which we're not going to get to. We're going to get to that next week, about workshops. I haven't read the whole thing, but we'll help you. But I'm looking at the clock, and I know we don't have time this week. But then you asked a question about whether abandoning hourly rate model also applies to new consultants. The answer is you shouldn't do hourly, period. That's not about how new you are. It's just about choosing the right contract structure. There are a couple of places where variable time materials are appropriate, but they're pretty rare. And for any kind of management consulting, you shouldn't be in that at all. Marie-Isabelle, do you disagree or?
Actually, I will argue that the newer you are, the easier it will be to set yourself up in a model that it's not a time and materials model. And for all of you that come from large consultancies, we want you to tear away from that as well, because large consultancies generally build time and materials. And it's difficult to see, but the MBBs of the world build time and materials. So we want you to be even further away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's a really good point, Marie-Isabelle. That at the start of your career, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a firm that was all just charged big flat rates. And so I learned, I didn't form the bad habits and then have to get out of it.
Right.
And with that, you guys have asked great questions. We already have a question queued up for next week. Feel free to submit your questions also. And we said something that you're like, oh, shoot, I want to remember that language. I think you can hit save in some way. And that way you can come right back and see the language we used. But we're at end of our 15 minutes. So Jaren, will you put up somewhere, I think over here, Jaren can put up the how to get here every week, because you need to come next week to see the answer to Heidi's question. So make sure that's in your calendar so you come and join us like many of you do every week, and we'd love to see you. So thank you for joining us. If you don't get the articles every week, make sure you subscribe. Thank you, Jaren. It's right there. And if for some reason you're not connected to Maria Isabel or to me on LinkedIn, well, please connect, because we want to be connected with you on LinkedIn. So basically just connect and be here with us. Thank you for coming and asking great questions and being part of what we're doing here. I hope you have a fabulous week. As I always say, just remember, consulting's about them. It's about your clients. And so give them kindness and give them value. And Maria Isabel and I will see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.